You may not have seen this research before. Alan Schoenfeld did this a number of years ago. What he did, he studied people as they were solving problems. He studied high school students and he studied mathematicians, and he created what he called these timeline graphs. And the timeline graph and the categories, sometimes they're not mutually exclusive, but he does attempt to define the difference. But so, for example, this is a mathematician's timeline graph. The mathematician reads the problem, he does some analysis, he comes up with a plan which he implements, then he verifies it and says, oh, now I need to try the case where x equals 4. And he goes back and analyses it again. The little triangles are the points at which the mathematician actually makes a statement along the way. So this was a typical timeline graph of a mathematician. But then he said, the high school students, he said 60% of all of the high school students' problem-solving attempt could be described as come up with a plan and implement it, come hell or high water. And he was concerned because if we're talking about deep learning, we want students to be metacognitive. We want them to think about their thinking. And these students just weren't doing that. So what did he do? And I really liked his approach because it's simple and doable and can be shared with teachers anywhere. He said, when you're working on problems throughout the next semester, at any time I reserve the right to ask you one of these 3 questions. What are you doing? You might say that to your students quite often. What are you doing? Why are you doing it? How does it help you? He said, any time when you're working, I reserve the right to ask those 3 questions. And he proceeded to ask those questions throughout the semester. And not surprisingly, what he found was, increasingly the students were internalising those questions. And so they'd see him coming, they think, oh, here he comes. What am I doing? Why am I doing it? How does it help me? And the happy ending to the story was then when he videotaped those same high school students at the end of the semester, their timeline graphs were much more like the mathematicians. So by the use of those 3 very straightforward questions, it's not rocket science, he got the students to be far more metacognitive than they previously were.